Hi everyone, today I'm doing part 2 of the 10 Looks 1 palette series using the Queen of Hearts palette by Coloured Raine, which looks like this. Comes with 12 gorgeous colours here. So the first part I did was a little bit more of the conservative wearable looks, I guess you could say. This part is going to be the more dramatic looks. Now the whole point of this series, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos before, is to test out how versatile a palette can be and how many unique looks can come out of it. I think it's a fun little experiment using the makeup that I have and to encourage people to shop their stash a little bit more. So if you want to see the more dramatic looks that I've created using this palette, then just keep watching. So this isn't the most original look ever, but I did want to use Dethrone, which is that warm shimmery brown shade, and I wanted to test it out. So I'm going to be doing this smoky eye look. As per my previous tutorials, I'm going in with a eye primer. This is the Concrete Minerals Electric Eye Primer, which I really like. Next, I'm taking a Zoeva brush of some description. I will put the exact brush down below, and I'm taking the shade Royal Prerogative into the crease and outer V. I am also extending the eyeshadow out into a wing because I want to create that elongated shape. Then as usual, in between shades, I like to take a fluffy blending brush and just blend out any harsh edges. I want to deepen the outer edges, so I'm taking the shade Duchess, which is a medium dark brown shade, and I'm just working it into the outer V as well as a little bit into the crease. Again, I'm blending things out, but as you can see, it has skipped over my eye folds, and that sometimes happens because I do have very textural eyelids, which is kind of annoying. Again, I'm going back in with Duchess in the outer V. I feel like this being the darker shade in the palette isn't quite deep enough for that really dark smoky eye look, so I'm just layering it and building it up. I'm going to add Dethrone to my mobile lid, and I really like the Coloured Raine shimmery foiled eyeshadows because they're very opaque and metallic without having to wet your brush, and they also sit over the mattes really nicely. I also think it's good to note that these ones don't crease even though they have a creamy-like texture, as some of these creamier eyeshadows tend to crease on the eyelids. Again, I'm just taking a fluffy brush and just blending that all in so that it looks a little bit more harmonious. Next, I'm taking a Zoeva Luxe Soft Finer brush and placing the shade Air under my brow bone. This is a really nice matte beige shade with peach undertones. I'm taking the shade Duchess again, and I'm using that to line my lower lash line using a NYX pencil brush, and I'm taking that 3/4 of the way in. I'm also going to layer Dethrone on top of Duchess as I like the metallic sheen to the smoky eye. With a clean, well somewhat clean blending brush, I am sweeping away any fallout that has occurred and also just blending out any harsh edges again. I'm taking the shade Crown, which is a beautiful white shimmery shade with a gold sheen to it for my inner corner highlight, and I'm taking a small dome-shaped pencil brush. Sorry about me fishing for the gunk out of my eyes, it's kind of gross, but it happens. For my waterline, I'm going in with Urban Decay eyeliner in Baked. And of course, I'm going to conceal under my eyes because generally with smoky eyes, I just want to brighten everything up underneath so it doesn't look muddy. And I'm using this infamous Morphe brush to apply everything with. I honestly can't remember where I got it from, but I do quite like it. And surprise, surprise, I've paired this with a nude lip. I know it's quite formulaic, but I like to balance out strong eyes with sort of nude lips. Next look, which does not involve nude lips, is this one, and I'd like to describe this as a sunset look. That was what I was going for anyway, and I do like the pairing of orange and purple. So for starters, I'm using the shade Ladyship, which is a matte berry shade, and I'm going in all over my mobile lid and packing it on. As you can see here, it is going quite patchy, and I didn't have this issue when I was doing this shade on my lower lash line. However, on my mobile lid, it's pretty obvious that it's getting patchy. On top of that, it's getting grainy. And I did notice that when I put my finger in the pan and swirl it around, that there is a grainy texture to it. So I am attempting to sweep it off using a fluffy brush, and I'm not very happy with that, but I'm just going to keep chugging along. By the way, sorry about the blurriness here. I was attempting to work it in and try and blend everything out, and I forgot about the camera. So I'm going to attempt to cover up this patchy mess using some orange with the shade Empress, and I'm going in with one of my new Wayne Goss brushes, which came in a set. I've been testing out these brushes and I really like them. However, for this shade, I think it works better with a more densely packed brush because it doesn't pick up very much pigment. So I'm going to go and dip in again and just keep applying it until it gets to an opacity that I like. I have to say, even though this contrast of orange and purple looks a little bit crazy, I quite like it, and I'm wondering why I haven't tried this out before. Tell me what you think. Do you like these two colors together? Anyway, I am diffusing it a little bit with a blending brush because I want it to look a little bit more subtle and not so in your face. I'm taking the shade Ladyship again, and I'm using a small pencil brush to line my lower lash line. As you can see here, I have no problems when it comes to applying this shade in small quantities under my lower lash line, but on my mobile lid, it just was not cooperating. As I usually do, I'm taking it 3/4 of the way in and also making sure to connect it to the outer V. With the same brush, I'm also going to add Empress to the lower lash line as I really like these two shades together. I'm going to wet a liner brush as I want to test out how well the foiled eyeshadows go when they're wet. And with this brush, I'm using the shade Your Majesty, which is a metallic copper shade, to line my upper lash line. I really like how rich and intense this shade is. I'd be really interested to see how it wears when applying without a wet brush. I'm also going to extend the eyeliner out into a wing, basically as far as the eyeshadow goes. And using the same shade and brush, I'm going to be bringing that into my inner corner as well. So I've just added some falsies and metallic liquid lipstick. Hopefully you did not notice that I was filming in my PJs. The next look is this sultry metallic golden eye look paired with red lips. Kind of reminds me of old Hollywood glam besides the hair. So I'm taking Royal Prerogative into the outer V and crease area. If you haven't already noticed, I really like this shade in this area because it is the right shade of brown for my skin tone, and it works really well underneath other eyeshadows as well. As usual, I'm also extending the eyeshadow into a wing shape as I like this shape on my eyes. By the way, I did also want to mention, as I did in my last video, that I do get eczema on my eyelids in winter or the cooler months. So it'll be interesting to see how these eyeshadows layer on top of that because they're pretty obvious, especially in my inner corners. And I'm just going to blend everything out with a clean blending brush. I'm going to add a bit of Firenze's Pixie Poxy all over my mobile lid. Basically what this does is it makes any shimmery eyeshadows more vibrant and minimizes any fallout. So I'm patting on the shade Royal Highness. This one is described as a metallic purple tone taupe. However, I have to say that purple isn't pulling through at all. It is quite a lovely golden shimmer, I guess, but it doesn't look like what it is in a pan. I'm adding more of Royal Prerogative into the crease just so that it melts in with the metallic shade. And using a small detail brush, I am going to be lining my lower lash line as well as connecting it to the outer V using that same shade and just smoking it out. I will go in with concealer later, but for now I'm just cleaning up everything with a big ass blending brush. I'm going to take some of the shade Dethrone and put that on my outer V just to deepen up that color because I feel like it's a little bit on the light side right now. I'm also going to bring it down to my lower lash line. Next, I'm taking the shade Crown and I'm putting that on the inner corner of my eye as well as connecting it up to where I added the other metallic shade and just blending it out together so it looks sort of cohesive. I'm also going to add a bit of under eye concealer just to brighten things up underneath my eye where the brown can look a little bit tiring on my eyes. So I just need to make sure that it doesn't look like I haven't had any sleep. I'm actually going to go back in with Dethrone and just stamp it into the outer V to give it a little bit more dimension. And then blending it out some more. This time I'm going in with a very precise pencil brush and I'm taking Dethrone on the lower lash line where I've got Royal Prerogative because I want to define it a little bit more. This is a pretty important step for me because I pretty much have non-existent lower lashes and this kind of helps to enhance my lower lash line. I'm also going to take Crown on the high points of my cheekbones as a highlighter as I wanted to test it out because it looks like it'd be a really nice highlighter and it is pretty blinding. So if you like that kind of blinding highlight, then this one won't disappoint. So I actually really like this look. I think it looks really sultry and glamorous, especially with the red lips and lashy lashes. Next look is this pumpkin spice look. It really reminds me of Sugar Pill's pumpkin spice, which is why I'm saying pumpkin spice, but I really like this pairing of orange and brown. So firstly, I'm going in with Royal Prerogative, which is that matte sort of medium brown shade, and I'm going in on the inner and outer corners of my eyes using a fluffy brush. I believe this is by Pat McGrath. Anyway, I'm purposely leaving the center of my eyelid bare as that's where I want to place the metallic shade. Next, I'm adding Empress and it's a really nice, vibrant matte orange shade in the same areas of my eyes using the same brush. I think this is going to make a really nice base to add Your Majesty on top of and it's going to give it some extra dimension. And I'm also going to go in with a clean blending brush just to make sure everything is nice and blended and cohesive. Next, I'm going in with this vibrant copper shade in Your Majesty and I'm going in on the center of the eyelid. Last time I used this wet as a liner, this time I'm going in with a dry brush. It's still pretty metallic, obviously not as intense as if I were to use it wet, but I'm pretty happy with the shine and I'm really glad there's no fallout. Just blending everything in again. Then I'm going to take a bit more of Royal Prerogative and I'm using it with a small crease brush and just adding more of that shade into the crease and above the metallic shade. I think these three shades in particular go really well together. I know it's really repetitive, but I am blending in again because I want everything to look really seamless, which is why I generally blend in between every shade that I add. I'm going in with Duchess, which is the medium dark brown shade on the outer V and emphasizing the wing shape. And I'm making sure to work it into Your Majesty a little so that the two shades really meld in together. And if you find that there are any harsh edges, just keep going in with that blending brush. I'm also going to take Duchess and line my lower lash line with a pencil brush. I'm concentrating it on the outer edges as well as connecting it up to the outer V and taking it almost all the way in. I'm also going to take the shade Your Majesty and concentrate it on the center of the lower lash line. As I want to keep it quite soft, I'm blending any harsh lines and edges. I'm going in with the shade Crown to highlight the inner corners of my eye. I really like this shade for this area because it is quite glowing and has that really nice golden sheen to it. I am going to diffuse it with a blending brush because it does go on very pigmented. Taking that shade on my finger, I'm just going to run it down the bridge of my nose and lightly blend it out. And because I like it so much as a highlighter, I'm going to add it to my cheekbones as well. So the final look is very autumnal and I've paired this with a coloured Raine liquid lipstick in Bachelorette. So I figured I haven't really incorporated very much purple, so I've decided to create this monotonal purple look. So first I'm going in with the shade Air. I have to say this shade does no favors to my dry patches on the inner corner of my eyes. It really does emphasize it. So I am going to hopefully cover something that will not emphasize it and hide these dry patches. But I'm just using this color as a base. It doesn't give a whole lot of coverage, but I'm using it primarily to set the primer. I'm going in with Queen Mother with a firm shader brush and just patting it into my mobile lid. I do plan on smoking it out, but for now I just want to build up the pigment. It does layer very nicely and it doesn't emphasize my dry patches, which is much appreciated. And also it's great because there's no fallout. So with a fluffy brush, I'm just smoking out Queen Mother, and as you can see, I've already done that on my other eye. And when it shears out, you can really see that brownish red base coming through, so it does shear out really beautifully. I know it looks like I'm taking forever to smoke these eyeshadows out, but because of the consistency, the fact that they are sort of a denser and creamier formula rather than buttery and powdery, these do take a little bit more work to blend out. I'm going to continue to build up that shade a little bit as I want it to be a little bit more pigmented and opaque. And again, just blending out the edges and smoking upwards and outwards. Next, I'm taking Inglot's Duraline, which is a mixing medium, and mixing that with the shade Ladyship to create a eyeliner. I'm keeping it pretty close to my lash line, but I'm also wanting to wing it out, so that's what I'm going to do to match the other side. I have to say, this shade turns into a really dark, plummy, grapey color, which is interesting. I wasn't really expecting that, but I actually think that in hindsight, it actually looks quite good together with Queen Mother. And of course I'm going to take it down to my lower lash line because I feel like if I don't add anything, it feels really bare. So I'm just lining that and connecting it to the wing, as well as bringing it pretty much 3/4 of the way in. I'm also going to go over that liner with Queen Mother, as I want it to be a little bit more metallic. I think it looks quite nice on the lower lash line. Given the fact that I used only 2 shades, I really do like the simplicity of this look, and I like that it looks really quite fresh and pretty. So this is my last and final look, and I did attempt to use every single eyeshadow in here because I wanted to try something a little bit different. First, I'm going in with the shade Air with a fluffy shader brush, and I'm going to take that on my mobile lid all the way up to my brow bone. This is quite a nice base shade for someone with my light to medium complexion. Next, I'm going to take the shade Princess, which is a matte blushed pink shade, and I'm going in with the same brush on the inner corners of my eyes. I do want to create a sort of gradient effect, so I'm going to start off with the lighter shades in this palette and then move all the way to a darker shade on the outer corners. Next, I'm going in with a slightly darker matte shade, and this is called Royal Prerogative. I'm placing that on the center of the eyelid and just slowly building it up and blending it in with Princess to create that ombre effect. Then taking a deeper shade again, I'm going in with Duchess and placing that on the outer corners of my eyes and creating a winged shape. I'm going to take a clean, fluffy blending brush and just blend out any harsh edges, harsh lines. Next, I'm taking the shade Empress using a smaller brush because I want to have it as an accent color or pop of color. And I'm sort of placing this in between Duchess and Royal Prerogative. I'm going to just blend it in circular motion so it really melds in with the other eyeshadows. Again, I'm just blending everything in together. I'm taking the shade Ladyship and I'm placing it just below Empress. I haven't quite lost hope on this shade. It does work well in small quantities, and so I am going to be stamping it on the eyelid. And by applying it this way, you do avoid patchiness. I'm taking a bit more of the shade Princess just to soften up the eye makeup a little bit more. I'm going in with Ladyship again to build up that purple shade. I'm taking a detailed pencil brush and I'm going in with the shade Dethrone on the lower lash line, and I'm starting from the outer V inwards. I've decided to keep the top lid matte and the bottom metallic because I don't want to mess up the gradient. I think it looks quite nice how it is. I'm going in with the shade Queen Mother because I want to create a gradient on the lower lash line as well to match the top lid. Then I'm going to take the shade Noble Woman, which is that gorgeous metallic burgundy shade, and add it to the center of the lower lash line. The next foil shade I'm taking is Royal Highness, and I'm lining that up to the tear duct. Lastly, I'm taking the shade Crown for the inner corner highlight. Surprise, surprise, I do like this shade in this area, which is why I'm adding it here again. I'm dotting the shade Your Majesty on the center of the lower lash line. I totally forgot to use this shade, which is why I'm kind of randomly placing it here to use up every single eyeshadow in this palette. I'm just smudging and smoking things out on the lower lash line with a clean blending brush. So for the final look, I paired this with the Makeup Monster's liquid lipstick, and I really like it actually, even though it was quite a random look. So those are all the looks. I hope you found that useful and interesting, and I hope it's given you some ideas on how you can use this palette if you have it or if you're thinking about getting it. I definitely feel like this was a really interesting experiment, especially because this is definitely a more playful and adventurous palette, I feel, because there are quite a lot of bright colors. And you know, it's definitely one that you can, you know, pare it down and also take it up a notch if you want something more dramatic, which I think is great. I must say though, as I was getting to the 8th, 9th, 10th look, I was kind of scratching my head a little bit thinking about different ways I could use this, but I definitely think there are some slight, you know, tweaks that you could do to each look to kind of, you know, change it up. So overall, I really like this palette. I do like the shades in here. I mean, some of the shades were a bit easier to work with than others, but overall I do think it's a really good cohesive palette. If there are any palettes that you'd like to see in this series in future, let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.